In our last show, the Canadian Grand Prix, you and Bob Constanduros were talking about Carlos, and you said he'd win plenty of races, but perhaps not going to be one of the greatest. And I was thinking, I'm not sure Carlos is ever going to win a race, because he's one of those drivers who, he's been 5 times a runner-up, hasn't he? But you were absolutely right. So I guess the question we've got to say, first of all, here is, was it a great victory? Did Carlos Sainz deserve to win the British Grand Prix?
He did get a bit lucky, but sometimes you do need a little bit of luck. I mean, that safety car definitely helped him, because he and Hamilton took advantage of the safety car to go to the soft tires, but Leclerc surprisingly stayed out on the hard tire, and that was why Carlos got by. Because even though, Carlos did manage to put it together to get pole position yesterday, he did not have the race pace of his teammate, did he? Leclerc had that small front wing damage on the front right, and he could still pressure Sainz, and in the end the team said, look, let Leclerc go through, which I think was the right call at the time, because Hamilton was closing in on the pair of them. So yeah, he definitely deserves the victory. Any driver there to cross the line deserves a victory, no matter what. But Sainz will also go back to the driver briefing, and he'll be looking very carefully at the data, because you also then find out after Parc Fermé that his teammate would have had a broken wing, and that will worry him. He'll go back to the debrief and go, wow, he was so quick with a broken front wing, so I really need to do a bit more work to understand what I need to do to be quicker in the race.
Yeah, he'd be saying, I want one of those broken front wings, because with 5%, or whatever it was, 5 points of downforce loss, Charles, as you say, was comfortably quicker than Carlos. I thought what won Carlos the race there, and what if you like, he deserved the win, was that Ferrari having bungled that last pit stop. We'll talk about that in a second. Then they told Carlos, didn't they, back up 10 positions on the grid. For the restart behind the safety car, and he said, no, don't do that. And he was deciding, as he was, wasn't he, as you said, on the restart, turn 1, he was very robust in defending the lead against Max Verstappen. He really looked like a guy who decided, today is my chance to win a Grand Prix. So we need to talk about that. Yeah,
I was just going to say, no doubt. I mean, even though we may have some question marks whether he'll be a world champion one day, I do think Sainz believes he'll be a world champion one day, and he's pushing. And that's really why it's so good to see him come on the radio and say, no, I'm not backing up anyone. I'm going to get as close to my teammate as possible and try and beat him. And it's great that he still has that attitude.
It was a big question, wasn't there, during the race about team orders? Because, as you mentioned, they had to ask Carlos to move out. Well, we've actually got a question from the audience. Here it is from John the Storyteller, one of the friends of the Go F1 show. Thank you, John. Is Ferrari in a position to be more brutal with team orders? It's a good question because of the history of Ferrari, I suppose, and the strength of it as a team. Are they being more brutal, or are they just being indecisive? Or maybe the answer is yes.
Yeah, they're definitely being indecisive, aren't they, Matt? Because the first half of that race before the pit stops, Leclerc was already complaining about that. I'm faster, let me through. And I wouldn't blame Ferrari for telling Sainz to let Leclerc go through at that point. But no, they said, no, you guys are there to race. So you have to race, you're free to race, I think was the exact term they said. And then they, after the pit stops, decided to change their mind and say, no, let Leclerc through. And so, but this is quite consistent to see this inconsistency with Ferrari at the moment. And when I see a team changing such a big policy like team orders inside a race, it's someone from up high calling down and saying, hey, look, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? It's always 99% of the time, it's always because there are too many cooks in the broth. So that's still not a good sign. It's a worrying sign for me for Ferrari.
And it's the indecisiveness, isn't it? Because with the teams that do it well, you almost don't notice the team orders, because it's almost like they've had the opportunity to think this is going to happen, which, by the way, I mean, you could sit down in January and work out that at some point during a Grand Prix, there's going to be moments when you're going to have to tell somebody to overtake the other. It always does strike me when these happen that it's the first time, wow, we're going to have a situation where we need to swap the drivers around, and it's a bit of a shock for everybody. The Ferrari team, I don't know whether that's just because we pay more attention to them, because we've got that perception of them.